Hey friends! My name is Desiree, aka Mama Friendly. I do all sorts of videos on my channel. Cooking videos, vlogs, hauls, Disney content, Vlogmas, a little bit of everything. So if any of that sounds like fun to you, I hope that you'll subscribe and join me on my YouTube adventure. Vlogmas marches on, as does my 12 Days of Cookies series, and today I'm making something extra fun. I am a Floridian. I don't know if this cookie necessarily screams holidays to you guys, but I would be remiss to not include a cookie like this in my series, just because it sounds like it's going to be delicious, but also because it very much represents me and where I'm from. Today I'm going to be attempting key lime pie cookies, and just like all the other cookies I've shown you thus far in this series, they are going to be gluten and dairy free. Now you can substitute ingredients where you feel like. If either of those things is not necessarily something that applies to you, you can use regular butter, you can use regular graham crackers, etc. But in case you do need something allergy friendly, you don't have to worry about adapting it because I've done that work for you. This should be pretty simple, and you shouldn't need too much to make it all happen. However, today, Mama's giving herself a little bit of a break. I've been baking a lot lately, and so I've decided that today I'm going to use my stand mixer to bring everything together. You don't need to have a stand mixer though. You can make it with a hand mixer, you can just do it analog style with a fork and some elbow grease, whatever makes sense for you. But if I have the stand mixer and I feel like using it today, then that's what I'm going to do. So, with all that being said, let me show you what I'm working with ingredients wise, and we'll jump right into the method. To begin, we're going to need 1 cup of dairy-free salted butter, room temperature. So I've had this out on the stove just hanging out for like 3 hours now. It's very much softened and ready to go. I'm using the Miyoko's butter. It is in fact salted, and the entire brick is 8 ounces, which is the equivalent of the cup of butter we need. So you're going to use the entire box. We also need 1 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, 1 egg at room temperature, 1/4 cup of key lime juice freshly squeezed. So I've got a bunch of little baby key limes here that I am going to be slicing up and squeezing until I get 1/4 cup of juice. And in case you can't find key limes, you could use regular limes. These have a slightly sweeter, less acidic flavor to them compared to regular limes, but it's not going to make a huge difference either way. I was able to find them easily, and so that's why I went ahead and I used them. 2 teaspoons of key lime zest. Now I'm going to try my best to get this, but my zesting skills are not the best, and I'd rather do without than cut myself, so we'll try. In the event that you'd like to bump up the flavor even more, you could also use a teaspoon of lime or lemon extract. I'm going to leave that out today, but feel free to use it if it's what makes sense for you. 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to be using the Bob's Red Mill 1-to-1 gluten-free. These guys should sponsor me at this point. They haven't yet, but Bob's, here I am, bro. Whenever you're ready, I'm ready. I go through a lot of this stuff, so if you want to send me some, I would love that. 1 cup of graham cracker crumbs. I'm going to be using these Kinnikinnick S'morables graham style crackers. I actually did a recipe with these earlier this year where I made like s'mores brownies with them, and they were delicious. I'll have that recipe linked up in the corner over there. And I'll also have these particular graham crackers in the description box in case you have a hard time finding them. I typically can find them pretty easily at Sprouts, but in case you don't have a Sprouts or a Whole Foods near you, you can get them online. And these are like whole graham crackers, so I'm going to probably put them in a Ziploc and either crumple them up with my hands or smash them with a, I don't know, rolling pin or something. If you want to take out your food processor, be my guest. I don't feel like dirtying an extra thing today. We also need a teaspoon of coarse sea salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1 cup of dairy-free white chocolate chips. I'm using the Enjoy Life brand, and I'm going to have these linked down below as well, because I find that the easiest and cheapest way to get them is in a 3-pack from Amazon. But that's it. That's everything that we're going to need. I've got an extra bag back there of white chocolate chips in case I need it. But with that, we're going to preheat our oven to 350 degrees. I'm going to line 2 cookie sheets with parchment paper, or I might just line 1 I think the other one I have is dirty, so I'll line one and then just bake in batches. But we're going to get that ready. I'm going to take out my stand mixer and we're going to get this party rocking. So as I've said a million bazillion times, I have a stand mixer. I don't like it. I wouldn't recommend it. It's just funky because instead of this moving, like the paddles or the whisks, whatever, the bowl actually moves. And it's not the most efficient design ever. Now, I own it and I will in fact use it if it makes my life a little easier. But if I had a chance all over again, would I buy it? Probably not. So now that that's handled, I've told you that, sufficiently embarrassed my stand mixer, I'm going to put in my 1.25 cups of granulated sugar. So I'm going to put 5 of these 1/4 cup measures in. And that gives us 1 cup and, whoa, 1/4. Just like that. And also our entire box of butter. This would be the equivalent of 2 sticks of butter. If you're using a different kind, the Miyokos one is just 1 big slab of butter. So it ends up being 1 brick as opposed to 2. But that's all going in there as well. And now I am going to have this cream together for a couple of minutes until it's smooth. Next, we've got our adorable little key limes. Look how cute they are. I went ahead and juiced 6 of them, and that got me my 1/4 cup of juice. I'm going to put it into our bowl here through a fine mesh sieve, just because I don't want any seeds in our cookie dough. And like I said, I could zest them, but I won't because they're itty bitty and I don't want to hurt myself, so I'd rather go without. But there's our key lime juice and also our egg. If you were using zest or using the lemon or lime extract, you'd add that in at this point as well. We're going to mix everything together on high for another couple of minutes. Remember to scrape down the sides of your bowl as needed so that you don't leave a bunch of stuff up on top that doesn't incorporate with everything else. Moving on, now that that's all incorporated, I'm going to put my 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda in. I'm going to do my cup of graham cracker crumbs. I could have probably gotten a finer crumb on it if I had used a food processor, as I said, but this is going to be fine. And I ended up using 1/2 the package to get me my cup's worth of crumbs. So that's going in as well. Next, I'm going to put in my teaspoon of coarse salt. I happen to have my little dish here, so I think I'm just going to dish it out with a spoon rather than try to sprinkle it from the grinder. This will be more precise. So that's a 1/2 teaspoon and another 1/2 for a whole teaspoon. And lastly, we're going to put in our flour, and that was 2 1/4 cups. So that's 1 cup. I'm trying to aim for the 1/4 so I could just make sure to get it out of the way. But I ended up putting too much, so I decided to go ahead and just do the full cup at first. Thereabouts is a 1/4 cup. And then we just need 1 more full cup for the 2 1/4 cups. I much prefer to measure flour by weight, but that's not how this recipe is written, so that's what we're doing. I am now going to turn my mixer on low, and this is very important because if you blast it straight onto high or even medium, you're just going to have a poof of flour all over yourself, all over your kitchen. So I'm going to start this at its lowest possible setting, get everything just incorporated until the dough forms, and then we're ready to move on to our chocolate chips, which is the last bit. So that's what the dough looks like before the chocolate chips, and it's definitely a dough, but it's very soft and wet compared to what I'd expect a cookie dough to look like. It's very soft. So let's see where we go from here. Last thing in is our cup of white chocolate chips. So is that pretty much what I have in this bag? I'm a little short, so I guess I'll go ahead and I'll open the second bag. Typically I wouldn't, but should I? Should I open a whole other bag? You know what? That's fine. That'll do. Typically I would say there's no such thing as too many chocolate chips, but I don't want to open a whole other bag because white chocolate chips are not something I use super frequently, and then they'll just be open forever. So I'm going to very, very slowly just incorporate this. I am now going to use a cookie scoop. It says to use a 1.5 tablespoon sized one. This is the only one I have, so this is what I'm using. And we're going to drop the cookie dough onto the parchment lined cookie trays approximately 2 inches apart. So they are going to spread. And we're going to bake them at 350 for 8 to 10 minutes or until the edges are just barely light golden brown and the centers appear slightly underbaked. Because when we take them out of the oven, we're going to let them cool for 10 minutes. And during that cooling, the carryover heat is going to continue to cook them. So if they look completely cooked to you when you take them out of the oven, that just means you've overdone them. I've just read at the end of the recipe that if you're not putting lemon or lime extract in, you could opt to omit it entirely, or you can add vanilla extract instead. Now, I was fine with omitting it altogether, but now that I know that vanilla is an option, you can't go wrong with vanilla in most desserts. So I'm just going to put a little touch of it. Not enough to give it a wow vanilla flavor, but just enough to give it a little something extra. And now that's done, so it's time to scoop. So according to the recipe, you're going to get about 36 cookies out of this. The way that I've spaced them out, I'm getting a dozen for each sheet tray. So that's going to be 3 trays worth or 3 batches worth. Now, I don't know how well the camera's picking it up, but the dough looks almost whipped to me. It looks more like a buttercream than it does a cookie dough. So I am deeply curious as to how these are going to turn out. I am going to flatten them just a touch, or maybe not. I might flatten, you know what? I'm going to flatten these first 3 because I'm losing batter or dough as I do that. So I'm just going to flatten those and see if they make a difference. I feel like this is a dough that would definitely benefit from refrigeration before baking, but the recipe doesn't say to do that. So at least this first tray, I'm just going to bake it as the recipe says, and I will report back and let you guys know how they look in... The recipe said 8 to 10 minutes, but my oven does tend to burn a little lower than most, so I'm thinking I might do 10 to 12. Alright friends, I finished with 2 batches and I am definitely going to have enough for a 3rd batch, but I wanted to give you all a little bit of comparison. Mind you, these have just come out of the oven, so they have not had the 10 to 15 minutes to cool down that these have, but these were the cookies that I scooped out straight from the bowl, and as you can see they are cooked, perfectly cooked actually, but I did have to bake these for 15 minutes. I baked both batches for 15 minutes apiece. However, these are a lot flatter, whereas I'm sure you can see, even though I'm not going to pick it up just yet because it's still warm, you can see that these maintained their shape a lot more. They're a little fluffier, and it looks like even when they cool down they're going to maintain some of that shape. So basically, if you want a flatter cookie, go ahead and bake it straight from the bowl. And if you want a little bit more of a mound to your cookie, you can go ahead and chill it. But either way, it's going to be ready in 15 minutes, so it really didn't make that much of a difference. This is the inside of the cookie. And now we're going to give it a little taste test. The key lime flavor definitely comes through. The white chocolate is just melty enough, but still gives a little bit of texture. Speaking of texture, the graham crackers are great in this. I will say the key lime is there, but I'm getting pretty much like slightly more of a hint, where 1 would be no lime flavor whatsoever, and 10 would be, oh my gosh, you're basically just giving me straight lime juice in cookie form. They're like at a 3.5. So if you really want to bump up the citrus flavor, I would suggest doing an extract. Definitely that over adding more juice, because if you add more juice, you're going to start to mess with the texture of the cookies. But as it is though, the flavor is really nice between the balance of the lime and the vanilla, the white chocolate, the graham cracker. Very delicious and definitely reminiscent of a key lime pie. I'm gonna finish baking these cookies up, but I want to thank you guys so much for being here and watching this video. 12 Days of Cookies continues on. Let me know if you've tried any of these yet. If you have, which has been your favorite. I'm really enjoying this series, so I hope you are too. Make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell because I post at least 3 times a week, and I wouldn't want you to miss a minute of this, of the rest of Vlogmas, of what's to come. So thank you once again for watching, and we'll see you real soon. Bye!